Nicole?
Completely agree.
Okay. Well, let's move on. In your honest opinion, with social media, all the news stories, television filled with statistics and updates about this pandemic, how much is too much for us?
This is one of the things where you have to use your self-regulation techniques, where you say, okay, I know it's too much. Social media prior to COVID-19 was too much, but it's a decision we make to engage. And so we have to have a conversation with the fact that we choose to engage. News comes at us because we turn on the television. Social media appears because we open Instagram or Facebook. And so we have to be able to determine when this is causing us more harm than it's doing us good. Are we going here to seek information, or are we going here to just kind of drown our brain and just something meaningless at the moment? It really depends. And so you have to be able to say to yourself, would this be too much for me in a regular setting? Is this making me more anxious? Is this making me more exhausted? Is this causing me to question my life more? Then maybe it's not the best modality, and it's something that we have control over. Unlike COVID, we have control over the information we take in. And so we have to exercise our agency to say, hey, listen, I don't have to engage in this. That just means that I'm going to have to get information other ways. So if that means that you have to call a friend or converse with them, then that may be a better option. But sometimes we realize that when we go on social media, we just kind of go down a hole and we're scrolling and scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. Before you know it, your brain is just wiped out and exhausted. And in anything that's exhausting you and it's not doing you anything in terms of feeling better, then it's something that we have the power to control. And so it's up to us to determine whether or not it's too much.
100% agree. So basically what Nicole is talking about is this idea of locus of control, right? So like when we're in a situation like the one right now, there's so many things that feel out of our control. And not only feel, they are out of our control. Like we cannot predict what 6 weeks from now is going to look like. And for a person like me who has a need to know, and like that sense of control is so important, it's a very challenging time, both emotionally and psychologically for me, right? But this idea of locus of control says, okay, I might not be able to say in big picture what 6 weeks from now looks like, but in my home, what are the things that I want to make sure that I can do? In myself, what are the things that I know that I need to do for me, right? And as it relates to social media specifically, I know that I'm the kind of person that can't take in lots and lots of information. So if the news is on, maybe I'm gonna watch it for 10 minutes, maybe, and then I'm gonna shut it off. I cannot have COVID-19 conversations all day, every day. So one of my sisters, I have 3 sisters, one of them is like super, let's talk COVID all day, every day. The other sister's like, I can't deal with it. And I'm kind of in the middle. So the sister who wants to talk about it every day will have a quick talk, and then I'll put one of my children in the camera and she'll change the subject, right? So how do I manage the folks around me to be able to get the best results for me in this moment? Like, what do I need? Social media for me is really a platform that I use to share about my family and my workouts, and it's very seldomly used for news or articles or debate. So I stick to that. You won't see me kind of engaging in that way, and it's not because I don't believe in it, it's just because that's not how I view social media. So the things and the boundaries that I've established for myself, even in this moment, I'm keeping those shored up. So as there's so much uncertainty, I know that those are the things that I can control, and I'm certain about that.
Thank you. Couples who don't usually live together might experience some kind of challenge in their marriage during this pandemic. What should they do about
it? Ooh. Well, it's good to acknowledge the fact that there are couples who they travel quite a bit. People who are going through some challenging phases where they may be doing a separation, a trial separation. And so they didn't intend on the separation incorporating this amount of social distancing that they have to deal with. In addition to that, being single, that does not allow for you to have the space to date. because no one wants to catch COVID because you want to see someone. Like that's just it's like, especially when it's coming towards our community in such a scary way. So I think for couples who are experiencing social distancing, it's as if you have to see yourself as dating long distance, where the cute little things you would do for each other before, like, no, you hang up first, you hang up first, no, you hang up first. That would be the thing. And so if that's that mode of communication, some people enjoy texting each other, doing videos with each other. My daughter did something that was so different, and she came up with it herself. She's 8 years old. She took my iPad and she decided to FaceTime with one of her friends. And she sat the iPad in front of the television, and her and her girlfriend watched a movie together. And so it was the cutest thing from an 8-year-old brain, but it was something that created community within a space of distance. And so it's those cute things. My job has a virtual happy hour, and it's actually tonight. And to see all of these people doing what they would normally do in a bar online is comedic to me. But people found ways to incorporate social distancing in a way that works for their lifestyle. So I think for couples, you kind of have to assess where your relationship is. Know that this phase of this is temporary, because as Leslie noted, we don't know what's happening from 6 months from now. And just a month ago, things were changing hourly. So we really don't know, but we have to hold fast to what we know is certain. So do you love each other? Boom, you're good. Do you love do you have a relationship with someone who you're dating? You want to see them again? Then boom, pretend like you didn't have the phone. Pretend like you didn't pay the internet. If you can't pay those things, you didn't have the phone, how would you communicate in a different way if you were separated by time and space? And I would really encourage you all to kind of read up on how military families have dealt with this, people who are in military relationships or dating, because they are really, really well versed in this area. They know how to do distance. They know how to do separation with the uncertainty of death looming on overhead. So that's really, really key. So I would encourage you guys to look that up whenever you feel challenged, but it really gives you some good perspective on some of the techniques that they utilize.
And I think on the flip side of it, which I don't think I've really kind of thought about, is those couples who are living together who are getting on each other's nerves. How would you suggest for them to deal with that?
Yeah, so I was gonna just basically add to what Nicole's saying. This situation could easily test the couples who are on really good footing, right? So it might be easy to say like, oh, if people are already, there's tensions in the marriage or in the relationship, then this just makes them more pronounced. But I think even the most solid relationship, this situation will create tests for. And I'm sharing that just to kind of normalize this idea that everyone's going to experience some kind of relationship challenge, and it's really how we deal with it. Like, and Yvette already just mentioned her and Carrington, right? Like they could have the best parent-child relationship, and because they're different people, because they have personalities, and you put people into this situation, then dynamics are gonna fly. I've been thinking a lot about this as like a pressure cooker. So my mother-in-law likes to make greens and puts everything in the pressure cooker. Pressure cooker cooks it really, really well and kind of seals in the flavor, right? So it cooks it a little quicker. You have like really intense flavor. And I feel like we are all in a pressure cooker situation, particularly relationships, right? So the things that are solid in our relationship will start to like break into the things that make it a little bit weaker, right? And they all become one thing. So we need to do some work, some more intense work, to start to piece those things back apart, or to put in other ingredients that will help to create more balance in the relationship. My mom loves to cook. She cooks lots of stews, and sometimes if she puts too much salt in a stew, then she puts a potato in, because the potato helps soak up the salt flavor without reducing the rest of the flavors from the dish. So we have to be thinking about what is the anecdote, right? Like, what do we need to put into our marriage or into our relationship that will help to dissolve some of the salt or the unpleasantness that's existing? Is that distance? Is that walks? Is that prayer time together? Is that does this give us an opportunity to start addressing some of the dynamics that were already there, that we've just been able to ignore because we all go to jobs and we go our separate ways and then we have to come back together, right? So I think ultimately one of the gifts of this pandemic is that we have more time with ourselves, more time with our loved ones. And what that time offers us is an opportunity to be honest and real with ourselves and with them about where we are and what we need. And if we're able to have those conversations, then some of the nitpicking or some of the challenging dynamics can be worked through. And the working through those helps beyond this moment, right? That helps for the longevity of your relationship.
That's good. Thank you so much. We have a lot of people in hospitals and senior facilities and people who cannot enjoy their families. How does one cope in this time?
I spoke about my grandma who's 91, and my plan was to see her this last April, so last month, and we weren't able to do that. But I'm glad that we live in 2020 and there is a such thing as FaceTime. So I can FaceTime her, and that has made a difference for me. She's able to see how the kids are growing. We can talk, even if it's 15 minutes. But that's one way that I've been able to fill some of the void of not having her with me. Another thing that we've done is, as a family, on both sides of the family, there are intentional connection opportunities. So on the Henderson side, there has been a long history now of prayers on Mondays, and that I think has been really important for the family to still feel connected and to be grounded in our faith. And then with the Brown side of the family, we have a group, basically like a group me, but in an international one, because my family's all over the world, where we're able to kind of connect and laugh together and share updates and pictures. And that also, it's not the same as being in person. And I think it's important to mention this moment is not going to be the same as what it was, right? So we are in many ways making lemonade out of lemons at every turn. And my lemonade is being on a call with parts of my family, hearing from them how they're doing and checking in intentionally and carving out that time. And then with the other side of my family, hearing that my niece got into the school of her choice, or my grandmother saying something funny and people saying that we love you. Those have been points of connection for me.
Let me interject. So to further that question, I guess, is there are people who their loved ones, they can't speak to them because either they're on a ventilator right now, they're in a hospital setting where they can't be spoken to, they're in a senior facility or a nursing home where they don't have the access of video, conferencing, FaceTime. How do they best manage that in this trauma?
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button. That's a tough one, right? I can give you what I think would be a clinical answer, but there really isn't one. No one worked this into the DSM. So that's the unfortunate part about it. Speaking personally, not professionally, not being able to see someone, not being able to hold someone, not being able to interact with them physically, it hurts. If you ever seen a baby who has been neglected from their parents, there's a certain coldness to the child. And so at a certain point, you just have to emotionally shut down. And that's kind of the phase that some people are getting into, where they just shut down and say, well, okay, I guess I can't see them. Or we get really stressed out about not being able to see them. But we do have this gift of memories. We have a gift. We have a gift to be able to recall these good moments. We have the gift of being able to lift them up in prayer. We have a gift to be able to talk to them through sometimes just feeling them and what they meant to us. I've encouraged a couple of students of mine who've lost parents to COVID to write letters to them. And they know that they'll never get them, but it's writing the letter saying, if I were here with you right now, this is what I would say. And this is what I would tell you. And that seems to be a little bit cathartic. It doesn't change the act of physical touch. There's no substitute. So I'm not going to pretend like there's a thing for that, but there's a way for us to get out what we want to say. There's a way for us to get out what we feel to that individual. And what we hope and pray is that in that moment where they're struggling in the hospital, that we pray, number one, that they get better. Number two, that as they recover, that we share those feelings. So when they get better, we share them right away. We don't waste a moment. We take the time and say, I've never said this to you before, but I love you. And we love harder than we've ever loved. And then not sit in a place of guilt where we're grilling ourselves saying, man, I wish I would have gone over there more and I wish I could have spent more time. The truth was, as Leslie so perfectly noted, that we were all busy. This forced us to slow down. And in slowing down, we finally saw what was going on. They always say that our eyes are only focused on what we see, but there's a whole world happening around us that we're not paying attention to. This has forced us to pay attention. And so get the words out. And if you don't have closure that way, then talk to a friend, rely on your friends and family, share memories with someone who has a similar relationship to that individual. But there's nothing that can substitute that ability to be in face-to-face interaction with a person. But it does make you appreciate the moments when you get them back again.
One thing I'll just echo from what Nicole said is this idea of letter writing. And it might seem so small, but my husband always laughs at me and says, like, I have in my mind, I operate as an 80-year-old person because I like to go to the post office pre-COVID, and I like to look through the stamp book. And yes, there is still a stamp book at the post office, and I go through the stamp book and I pick my stamps for the letters and cards that I send. And for me, I believe in the power of a letter. I really do. I believe in the power of a card. My father-in-law is really good at this too, sending cards. And I think in this moment when we can't, for the people who don't have FaceTime or don't have access to any kind of media and you can't get to them, going back to some of the old school things to do that seem kind of silly but are so powerful is sending them a letter, right? Like writing a letter saying, I'm thinking of you, and maybe they'll write back. I don't know if you all remember back in the day, there used to be pen pals, and they used to be from different countries, and you'd write your pen pal and wait for the pen pal to send you something back. Well, in this moment, we can kind of still have that level of connectedness and belonging through these, what seemed at some point, maybe a month ago, seemed to be like old school ways. I just send an email. Well, no, write a letter. You learn a lot from a person's letter, right? Letter writing. You can kind of hear their voice. You see how they're writing, their hand script. And then they can hear a little bit from you too. I think expressing something in written form versus even typing it is a little bit different. So I would really encourage you all, particularly for the people who you can't get in contact with for whatever reason, to take the time to write them a letter.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you so much. I want to go on to this question. It's Mother's Day on Sunday, and some people are struggling for a variety of reasons. Some are trying to make sense of grief and loss during this time. Others are very conflicted, not being able to be with their moms because of social distancing. And what advice would you give to those who have this distress on Mother's Day? And those who have grieved the loss of their mothers normally find those other activities for them to do. How would you advise them to handle the stress of that avoidance too?
I think Leslie put it perfectly. It's the same solution. You know, it's one of these things where if your mom is not here anymore and something as simple as going to the gravesite, it's not something you can do anymore, or you can't visit With family, you all would usually have a social gathering to remember this individual. It's important that we use all the tools, be them old school, be them new school, use the tools to communicate, because it's the thought that matters. I have been the recipient of one of Leslie's letters, and they are amazing. Number one, she has great handwriting. So easy to read, and it means, because what it is I did more than a couple of keystrokes on the keyboard. I took the time, I got the paper, I got the pen, and I wrote. And so if you're in a challenging relationship with your mom, you can write to her, you could speak with her, and we take for granted the privilege of being able to communicate on phone and via email. But if that wasn't available, what other sources did we have to use? And it goes back to the Bible. You know, there were no cell phones in the Bible. There were no email tracks that you could use. There was no Zoom. And man, can you talk about how lazy the disciples may have been if they could have done this? Hey, everybody, love Jesus. Thank you. But they had to do the work. So that means they had to do some foot traffic. And sometimes it was alone, right? There was sometimes people had to travel alone. So it could be as simple as putting on your face mask, going outside their house and waving and saying, hey, Ma, I love you, a sign, something really simple. It doesn't require for us to be face to face necessarily, but it's the thought that matters. And what it does is it forces this God-given creativity to innovate that we have. And sometimes it kind of gets dormant because so many things are done for us, but we're innovators, we are creators, we know how to adapt. And because we're so highly adaptive, we're tapping into that again. So I think if you love your mom and you want to tell her, you know how, you know what her love language is. And if your mom's not here anymore and you want to show others how you want to love them, you know how to do it. Trust yourself, trust that you know how to do it. It just requires some creativity.
Well, I think you all have suggested and you've alluded to this question I was going to ask, and I want to give time for opening up for any questions that those who are attending have. But given all of this occurring, that's happening in this traumatic time, what is bringing you joy and peace in this uncertain time?
Yeah, I was gonna say a few things to what Nicole said, but it leads nicely into this next question about joy. So I think what I've been finding, two things. One is I live on the south side. I work in Evanston, so I have a pretty long commute back and forth, and which has often meant that I thank God for my husband every day because he's able to help support, get the kids ready and drop them off and all of those things. But I often miss that in the morning because I have to get to work. And by the time I get home, we might have an hour before they go to bed. So I'm really enjoying the quality time that I'm getting with them in the mornings. I get to get them ready. Xavier's potty training, which is, you know, y'all pray for me. But we are working on it. Yes, we are working on it every day. But those moments, I know that this particular moment that we're in related to COVID will pass at some point, right? There will be a new normal, and I will be going back to work and doing that commute again. So how do I cherish these moments with them? So that's one place of joy. The second, and this is what Nicole was talking about, is innovation. So I was really, really mourning the loss of Yara's first birthday party. We were supposed to be in Florida with my grandma and my family. We planned something in the park for her. And many of you may know that oftentimes the first child gets like everything and the second child gets nothing, right? So I've been committed that Yara's gonna get just as much as Xavier got. So I wanted her to have a party. That was all canceled. So I was really sad about it. And then I thought, like, what can we do? So we did a virtual birthday party for her. We had a virtual yoga class for kids. And we had an instructor, and we had about 15 kids join us and family, and we did that. And then we had a virtual birthday cake cutting, and we had family from all across the world and the country join. And that was something that we wouldn't have been able to do had we had the party in Florida. So while I missed being with them in person, the ability to recognize the gifts that this moment is providing is giving me joy. Another example, and this kind of connects to ideas for Mother's Day, Brian's birthday. So we have like, I don't know, 5 or 6 birthdays within a 2.5-week period. And for Brian's birthday, I thought we should do something special to kind of affirm him, right? To help him, remind him of who he is and all the good that he's done for so many people. So we had a drive-by birthday parade for him. And I thought maybe 10 people would participate and it would be great. And we had maybe 30 people drive by with signs from their cars and honking and just saying, showing love to him. And they met down the block and we handed them a piece of cake in their car and they then drove back home, right? So there's lots of ways to show love and care. Around Mother's Day, you might think about what is something my mom would do, right? If you're mourning your mom or missing her, I might cook something my mom would normally cook. Or I might think about a way that she might connect with the kids that I might do, or something she might watch on TV, or a song that would remind me of her. One of my coworkers for Passover, her mother created little gift bags of food for them and left them outside and they came and picked them up, right? So even if you can't physically be with them, the people you care about, there are lots of ways to show them that you care. And even if you can be with them and you can't celebrate in the ways that you might want to, like Nicole said, this moment gives us a chance to be innovative. And I think that there's a lot of ways to do that.
If you didn't have any other feedback, then I want us to open this opportunity for you, and just one mic at a time, guys. So if you raise your hand and then unmute your mic, you can ask any questions that you have of Dr. Leslie and Nicole Collins.
I wanted to hear what's bringing Nicole joy. We didn't get to hear it.
Oh, wow. Oh gosh. You know, I'm grateful that I live in a state that has beautiful weather. So while everybody was kind of cooped up, we were outside in 70, 80 degree weather. However, that has ended. We are up to 102. And so we're going to be in the 120s really soon. So this is our winter time. So we're staying indoors. So I'm grateful that my kids had a chance to be outside. I'm grateful that this is teaching my kids how much they don't control. A lot of times our desires can go really fast and furious. And what they're doing is they're living in a space where there aren't as many options, where, you know, we may have the opportunity to do something, but we can't for the greater good. And so they're learning that, yeah, you may not be a person who's going to be directly impacted by this, but this is for the greater good. This is for the whole. And as little selfish, little narcissistic beings that they're designed to be, they're all about self, and that's okay. But this forces them to realize that you're making a sacrifice for people who have immunocompromised situations, for people who have situations of health challenges that are not the best. One of my sons has asthma-related symptoms. And so it's important that we do this for each other. So it's teaching them an element of kindness, and it's teaching them sacrifice on a level that I could have never reconstructed. And so I find joy in that. And I find joy that they're healthy. I find joy in that, because that is not a promise, that is a gift. And so I have healthy children. I am healthy. The people that are on this call, we woke up this morning. And so that's a gift. And so seeing the gifts, and my mom wrote a book called For the Presence of God. And so this is a present from him. And so we get to wake up, we get to do this again, but we have a responsibility and a charge to make the best of it and to see what God is trying to teach us. And so I see the beauty in the moment. It doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean it's not frustrating. It doesn't mean that I don't get lonely in a house full of people. But the gift is that we get a chance to sacrifice for the greater good as Jesus did for us.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question that you want to pose to these panelists that we can try to answer? Because I realize that we're all dealing with trauma in different ways. And so I want to have a chance for you all to ask whatever questions or concerns that you have while we have these experts online. If you raise your hand, just let me know. Oh, so y'all not dealing with trauma, just me? Y'all have any issues, just me?
Carol raised her hand.
Hey,
Oh,
Reverend,
okay.
I'm trying to raise my hand. I didn't know how to do it.
Okay.
Carol, I do have a question. I am a introvert. I'm alone quite a bit. But it appears after a while it is really getting to me. And what are some things for a single person? I live in a studio. It's a nice size studio, but sometimes it really does get to me. I will call my mother, some girlfriends, and but still in all, it's that need for getting out, seeing them, So what can single people do when you're just looking at yourself? And I'm on conference calls and I'm working, watching TV. So I have a lot on my plate, but everything still is not satisfying me. It's missing. I'm not having a really hard time, but still in all, it's something that's missing, and I'm feeling it now.
Thank you, Carol.
A couple of thoughts, Carol. Thank you for sharing that. So I'm Jamaican, my family's from Jamaica, and there's this saying that says always isn't forever. And I think one thing is just to contextualize that this is a moment and it's not forever. And there will be an endpoint to when you will be able to see your friends or your family again. And although we don't know when that is, I think even just knowing like what Nicole said, I'm sacrificing for the greater good right now, but it's not forever. That's one thing. Another idea, and I've seen a lot of people do this, is even though we are supposed to social distance or we are social distancing, there's ways to do that and still be in connection with people. So for instance, at our home, we are able to go on our stoop and someone stands on the other side of the gate and we can have a conversation, right? So I'm not hugging them or like kissing or all those things that I might normally do, but certainly I can see people, we can talk. That kind of breaks it up. The third thing I'll offer is me and two of my girlfriends last Sunday or 2 Sundays ago had a walk and talk meeting. So sometimes the FaceTime and the screen time gets too much if I'm just sitting here, but it was actually a lot of fun to like take a walk outside and then be able to connect with them. Each of us were walking in our different places, different neighborhoods, but it was something about getting fresh air on my face and sunshine outside and moving my body that made it feel more connected. So I offer those as some suggestions to you.
I have a question. Somehow when you go in the store, I kind of get anxious, and I have to tell myself, like, okay, relax. You walk in the store, you have your mask and your gloves on, but people looking at you like you have a disease, and you look at them like they have a disease. And so, someone's like, how do we walk through the store and be relaxed? What am I touching? What am I doing? Because going to the store now is it can be tense. And that's never been the case going to the store, going to get your essential things that you need. And how does one, when you do step out of the house, do it in, I'm not saying relaxed and careless manner, but not get anxious about some things that we just have to do and have to come around people?
I would challenge people to recognize that the only thing that has changed so much is your awareness of the disease, right? That's it. Some years ago, I found out I had thyroid cancer. And it was so crazy because it's been there. My awareness changed. And so the awareness kicked up anxiety. And so right now, the masks remind you, the gloves remind you, the plexiglass reminds you. And so it's a natural anxiety response that you're having because all of these things are triggers. But all of these viruses and bacterial exposures have always existed. People, if we just looked at our hands, are pretty gross. And so, and our awareness now makes us hyper respond to a very real threat. So it's not a perceived threat, it's a real threat, but there are lots of other threats. Being Black in anywhere is a threat. Walking outside and you could get shot, that's a threat. but somehow you're okay with walking. And so the thing is, we have to have enough successful times where we did it and nothing happened that trumps how we see the rest of it. So you walked in the store lots of times and nothing's happened. And as long as you're protecting yourself, know that this is temporary. This will not, it can't stay this way because everything changes. The Bible talks about everything changing. It will not stay the same. Our minds can only conceptualize so much. So we believe that it will be that way for a little bit. So the anxiety is normal because everything in there says, you see a mask, you see people with guns and stuff. That's a lot. So you should be anxious, but no, you're going in there to get your groceries and you're going home. And so you know that that comes to a close. Like Leslie said, that this thing will end. Your trip at the grocery store will end. And so that's it. You go and you do what you need to do. And I did want to say something to Carol. Carol, what is something that you love to do?
Well, right now, it's kind of hard. I used to like to work out, but you can't go to the health club. So I make myself kind of work out in my apartment. I do take walks, every now and then. I love going to church. You can't go to church. So we are able to look at service almost every day. So I'm doing a lot of reading, and right now it's a lot of online courses that's been offered free. And actually, I'm kind of overwhelming myself because I'm trying to do too much. But still in all, it's still that need, for the, social outlet. I used to go out, eat at restaurants a lot. So it's just kind of changing my role. And I really thought that I was an introvert, but I guess now I may need to be more extroverted.
I would like to challenge you to do something very radical. Sounds crazy. You ready for it?
Yeah.
When the weather breaks, I want you to take your music, whatever it is you like to work out to, and I want you to work out outside in front of everybody. The weird part is you will find that people will come and join you. They'll come and join you. They will work out with you. There are lots of videos of people doing Zumba from their yards, and they're having Zumba classes. There's a way to create that social element. It's there. You get to get it, but you may be charged with the idea to innovate and to start it.
Okay.
So if this is something on your heart, then go ahead and innovate. Create a space, a safe space for introverts who are finding out that they need a little bit more attention outside. To see each other, to interact with each other, create a couple of flyers, knock on some doors, and create the space where not only you fill your tank, but you fill others too.
Okay.
It's like a house party on the lawn.
Well, I have a patio. I think I'll try that next week. It's cold today, so I might have to try it. It's a little warm, but that's kind of a unique idea. I'm gonna try it. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a really quick response to the anxiety in the store. And some of it also is like, the anxiety also exists in our mind, right? So like what Nicole said, all of this has always been here in some form, but it's because we're more aware of it. So one way to counteract that is to ask yourself, so what if it were true? So if I'm walking in the store and this person has COVID and that person has COVID, do you still need to go to the store and get your stuff? Answer is likely yes. So then the idea is not who has COVID, it's what do I do to protect myself, right? So that's wearing your mask, that's washing your hands, that's all the things that you are already doing to do the best you can to protect yourself and others. And if you can think that I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and I have to get my groceries, then the anxiety around, well, what if this person has it or what if that person has it starts to decrease, because what if they did have it? What are you going to do? Like, what is the answer? So if you found out they did have it, then what is kind of the thing. And if the then what is, I wouldn't go to the store. So then maybe you shouldn't go to the store right now. And who should go to the store? Right? But I think it's not so much living in the anxiety cycle, but thinking like, so if this were true, then how would my actions, behaviors be different or adjust to what is true?
Thank you. Anybody else have a question? Okay, Aprella, you can unmute.
I want to chime in on that same question. Hi, everybody. That's where I have a level of anxiety. I'm a lot better, but I think my issue is when I go in the store, I do all of the things that I need to do to protect myself. But when you go in the store and others don't, they don't social distance, they don't cover up. And sometimes they purposely try to get close to people. Sometimes you say, oh, okay, we do that normally, but I've seen it and I've encountered it a couple of times, and it's like, oh my God, did this just happen? And so you try, and I got mad one day, and I came back and I sat here in my little prayer room, and I had to repent and say, God, you know what? Maybe they just don't know better, but to me, I think that's where the anxiety level goes up for me. That's my point of frustration. I mean, I'm better with it now. And so I try to go to the store at different times that are, earlier, because I work, a lot of times I don't get out until after 4:30 because I'm, but like Saturday morning, I might get up really, really early, drive to Timbuktu, get in the store and do what I need to do and get out. So, I mean, those are some of the things that I've looked at doing to reduce my level of anxiety. And like Carol, I live alone. I have family. I Zoom a lot and do all of that kind of stuff. So it helps. And then I go outside and work in the yard. But that's my issue right there. So.
Any responses to that?
Yeah, I would just say that's what I would recommend, right? Again, we talk about locus of control. You can't control other people, but you can control you, right? So I was going to suggest going sorry, you hear the little ones in the background, going super early. That's what I do at the grocery store. Like, I can't deal with lines. I don't feel like waiting in line, and I don't want anybody touching me. So I'm going to go at 6 o'clock in the morning when it opens. Again, I'm also a morning person, so that doesn't make a difference to me, and I'll get what we need and then I'll get home. And that's how I've adjusted, right? Rather than like ruminate, get frustrated, want to buck up and fight somebody in the store. Nobody got time for that. We are going to figure out what I can do to minimize my negative interactions with crazy people if they want to act crazy. So that's what I will offer. I think you're exactly doing what I was going to suggest.
Awesome. I know that we're at 2:55, which is a hard stop for Dr. Brown Henderson because she's got another call. And I know that many of you all have come on your lunch as well. And so we want to honor that too. But I want to make sure that we take one more question if you have a burning one. And then if you can make that question short so that they can respond to that. And then how many of you all are interested in doing something similar with another similar topic again soon? Anybody, just raise your hand if you're interested. Okay, all right. So anybody else for a question before we let them go? And anybody? Well, I think that this has been great, an opportunity for us to engage in a way of trauma. I think that people feel like they're just going by it alone. For those of you who are still in the working world, we know that you are dealing with a different trauma more than those who are at home. And so our prayer for you is that God will sustain you in these very difficult times, because being at risk, being one of those essential workers is really a deep moment, and we're praying heavily for you. but also we want to acknowledge that that's a stressor for you as well. And so we want to be able to address that. So before we go, any other questions before we head through this? Well, I want to thank both Leslie and Nicole for coming on. Thank you for your expertise. Thank you for the giftedness that God has given you. We're going to call on you again. We might do something again next week, which whatever fits in with you all schedule, because I know that it's pretty busy. But if there are things that you all know that you all want to talk about, you can always inbox me, email me, text me. I think most of you all have a way of reaching out to me so that we'll know exactly what we should address in this next time. So with that in mind, will one of our speakers want to close us with a word of prayer?
Sure, I'll go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the gift of each other, the gift of being able to converse with each other, to share our hearts. We thank you for the life that you've given to us. We thank you for the lives that we are going to touch and that we continue to touch as individuals, Lord God. I pray a hedge of protection around each individual on this call. I pray a hedge of protection around all of their family members and friends connected to them. I pray that whatever spirits that have held us bound, God, that they are broken in your name, God. We pray that you continue to keep us in peace, God. Help us find joy in who you are and what you are and all the things that will come, God, and help us to understand the lesson that you want us to learn. We praise you and we thank you. In your son's name we pray, amen.
Amen. I will later on have this posted on the Midday Bible Study page so that if those of you who came in late, you all can review some of the questions or the topics that we already discussed. The question that I forgot to ask about was about the hug, but you all really kind of addressed that as well. So God bless you guys. Love you so much.
Love you
You all have a
too.
wonderful
Thank you.
day, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Hey, Brandon.
Hello.